Before we dive into today's intense story, a quick reminder. Over 90% of our viewers watch our videos but aren't subscribed. If you enjoy content like this, take a second to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. And if you find this story gripping, don't forget to like the video. It really helps us out.
I never thought I'd become the kind of woman who hid things, who glanced over her shoulder when her phone buzzed, who smiled politely across the dinner table while a secret storm brewed just beneath her skin. I used to judge women like that. I thought they were weak, foolish, or cruel. Now I understand that sometimes you become someone else without even realizing it, one small compromise at a time. My name is Anna. I was married to Mark for 9 years. On the surface, we were that perfect couple people referred to with envy. He had a stable job as a financial analyst. I worked part-time as a teacher. We had a small, charming home, 2 cars, and a dog named Louie. But beneath the calm waters of our life, something was dying, slowly, silently, and without anyone really noticing. Mark wasn't a bad man. He wasn't abusive or harsh. He was just distant. Like he lived in a world where I didn't exist unless I was needed, if the dishes were done, if the groceries were bought, if dinner was ready. Over time, I stopped feeling like his wife and more like an assistant living under the same roof. When I tried to talk about it, he brushed me off with the same robotic kindness. I'm just tired. It's work stress. We'll take a trip soon. But that trip never came. The conversations never deepened. The space between us turned into a canyon. Then came Adrian. I met Adrian through a neighborhood book club. He had just moved into a rental down the street with his aunt. He was much younger than me, 22, just finishing university. I didn't notice him at first. He was quiet, often keeping to himself, polite to everyone. But during one meeting, we were paired to discuss a novel and something just clicked. It was nothing inappropriate. We just talked, really talked, about literature, about life, about the feeling of being unseen. He listened to me like I mattered, like what I had to say wasn't just background noise. He looked me in the eyes when I spoke, and he remembered things, small things like how I took my tea or that I loved classical piano music. At first, I thought it was harmless. I told myself I was just happy to have someone who listened. I told myself Mark would change, that I was just lonely, not disloyal. But emotions don't come with labels. One minute, I was baking cookies for the club. The next, I was laughing on my porch with Adrian until the stars came out. Then I started to dread when our meetings ended. I found myself checking the street for signs of him coming home. My phone buzzed and my heart jumped. I was slipping and I knew it. I never slept with Adrian. We never kissed. But we shared words, looks, and silences that felt louder than anything physical. I knew what it was. I just didn't want to name it, because naming it meant facing what I had become and what my marriage truly was. Things escalated one afternoon when I was walking my dog and saw Adrian sitting on the curb looking upset. His aunt had been rushed to the hospital. I offered to drive him, and he didn't protest. We sat in that emergency room for hours. He rested his head on my shoulder at one point, and I didn't move. I didn't care if anyone saw. In that moment, I felt needed in a way I hadn't felt in years. But guilt is a silent creature. It waits until the stillness returns. That night, I looked at Mark sleeping next to me, his breathing steady, his hands clasped like always, and I realized we weren't sleeping in the same bed. We were sleeping in the same memory. Whatever we had was already gone. I was holding on to the idea of him, of us, because the idea was safer than starting over. I wanted to leave. I wanted to say it was over. But something stopped me. Maybe fear, maybe comfort, maybe the thought that I had wasted so many years and couldn't bear to waste more. So I did what many women do. I buried it. I distanced myself from Adrian. I stopped going to the book club. I told him it was best we didn't talk, and he understood. He didn't push. He just looked at me like he already knew the ending. Mark didn't notice the shift. Not really. He continued with his routines: coffee, stocks, golf on Saturdays. I could have disappeared and he might not have noticed for days. Then came the twist I didn't expect. One evening, while clearing the dinner plates, Mark's phone lit up. I wasn't snooping, I wasn't checking, but I glanced at it and I froze. It was a message from someone named Elle. "Last night was amazing. I keep thinking about your hands." I dropped a plate. Mark rushed in from the living room. "You okay?" I nodded too fast. "Yeah, just dropped it." He cleaned it up while I stood there shaking. I didn't say anything that night, or the night after. I was paralyzed by 1,000 questions. Had he been cheating? For how long? With who? Was I so wrapped in my own emotional betrayal that I missed his entirely? I started observing, watching. His late nights made sense now. His business trips. His sudden interest in working out again. I didn't confront him, not because I was afraid of the truth, but because I wanted the whole picture before I acted. So I began my quiet investigation. I checked his social media messages when he forgot to log out. I scrolled through deleted WhatsApp chats that had been poorly erased. I found receipts, literally. Dinner at places we never went, jewelry I never received, hotel bookings during times I thought he was in Boston for meetings. The more I uncovered, the colder I became. He had done everything I hadn't. He crossed lines, multiple times, with different women. Elle was just one of them, and I, the woman who thought herself broken for falling into emotional closeness with a younger man, realized I had been living in a house of betrayal long before Adrian ever showed up. It wasn't heartbreak I felt. It was liberation. I had spent years blaming myself, trying harder, cooking better meals, wearing brighter lipstick, reading self-help books on how to save a marriage, and all the while, Mark had been using my trust like a doormat. That's when I decided. I wouldn't cry, I wouldn't beg, I wouldn't explode. I would take my revenge the smart way. But revenge doesn't always look like what people think. It's not fire and chaos. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's power reclaimed, piece by piece. The first thing I did was prepare legally, quietly. I contacted a divorce lawyer, gathered evidence, created a digital folder he'd never find. I checked the finances, our joint savings, the hidden accounts he thought I didn't know about. I documented everything. Then I started rebuilding myself. I returned to the book club. Not to see Adrian, but to see me again. I took long walks. I joined a painting class. I slept in the guest room. When Mark asked, I told him I needed space because I wasn't feeling well. He nodded, distracted as ever. He didn't even realize I was leaving him long before I packed a single box. I didn't need Adrian. I didn't need vengeance through someone else. I needed clarity. And for the first time, I had it. When I finally confronted Mark, it was over breakfast. He was scrolling his phone like always, sipping his coffee. I know about Lauren and Danielle and whoever was with you last October in Philadelphia. He looked up, confused. What are you talking about? I slid the printed emails across the table, the screenshots, the receipts. He turned pale. You've been spying on me? I smiled. Number just observing. The way a woman does when she's done pretending. He tried to talk, to explain, to deny, but I was already past caring. I'm filing. I've already spoken to my lawyer. You'll be served next week. Anna, you lost me a long time ago. You just didn't notice. I stood up, calm and certain. I was lonely, Mark, but now I'm free. The look on Mark's face as I walked out that morning stayed with me for a while, not because I felt guilt, but because it finally showed me who he really was beneath the polished exterior. For years, he wore the mask of the dependable husband, stoic, rational, successful, but in that moment, the mask cracked. I saw fear, not fear of losing me, but fear of exposure, fear of losing his image. I didn't give him the reaction he wanted. I didn't scream. I didn't fall apart. I left the house with dignity, carrying a single suitcase and a folder of documents. I had arranged everything. I was staying with my sister Clara for a while. She'd always suspected things weren't right with Mark, but she respected my silence. When I arrived at her place and she opened the door, she hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "You did it," she whispered. "I'm proud of you." I cried then, for the first time in months. Not for Mark, for myself, for the years I wasted, for the version of me I lost somewhere between the dinner parties and the empty anniversaries. The divorce proceedings were swift. Mark didn't contest much. He knew he was caught. The proof was too clean, too thorough. I was awarded half of everything, including a portion of his hidden investments, thanks to a forensic accountant my lawyer recommended. Mark tried to act like he didn't care, but I could see it wore him down. His pride was built on control, and I had taken that away. I thought I'd feel victorious. But revenge isn't always sweet. Sometimes it's just necessary. The real victory came slowly, in the quiet, in the rebuilding. I got a job teaching full-time again. At first it was just to keep busy, but then I realized how much I missed it. The energy of the students, the joy of explaining something complicated and watching someone's eyes light up. I started smiling again. Real smiles, not the ones you wear for photos. I redecorated a small rental apartment, painted the walls myself, chose soft blues and earthy browns. My space, my peace. No luxury, no granite countertops or walk-in closets. But it was mine. I started reconnecting with myself. I went to therapy. I joined a weekend pottery class. I adopted a rescue cat named Momo, who had a crooked ear and an attitude I weirdly admired. I even learned how to ride a bike again. I hadn't done that since college. Adrian didn't reach out, and I didn't either. I think we both understood that whatever existed between us wasn't meant to last. It was a wake-up call, not a destination. He gave me the mirror I needed to see myself. For that, I'll always be grateful. But I didn't need him to complete the journey. And yet, healing isn't linear. There were nights when I woke up sweating from dreams of my old life. Days when I saw couples holding hands and wondered if I'd ever trust someone again. I tried dating once. It was awkward, forced. The man was kind but kept checking his phone. It reminded me too much of Mark. I stopped forcing it. I told myself I'd rather be alone than ever be invisible again. 6 months after the divorce, I ran into Lauren. Yes, that Lauren, the L from the message. I was at a small cafe, sipping tea, grading student essays. She sat down 2 tables away. I didn't notice her at first, but when she turned, I recognized her. She recognized me too. Our eyes met. She looked unsure, maybe even ashamed. I should have ignored her, but something inside me was tired of carrying silence. I stood, walked over, and said simply, "You're Lauren, right?" She blinked. "Yes." "Anna?" I nodded. "You knew he was married." Her face went pale. "I didn't at first. He said you were separated." I raised an eyebrow. "Classic." I broke it off when I found out the truth. I swear I believed her. Not because I wanted to, but because her face looked exactly like mine once had. Disappointed, used, confused. She wasn't the villain. Mark was. Always had been. "Don't worry," I said. "He lost everything, and I found myself." She stared, mouth slightly open. Then she whispered, "Good." I walked out without finishing my tea. Some things are better left unfinished. Weeks passed, then months. The bitterness faded, replaced by something quieter. Acceptance. Then one day, I got a message request on social media from Adrian. I hesitated. My heart beat a little faster, not from excitement, but curiosity. The message was short. "Hi, Anna. I hope you're well. I just wanted to say thank you. You changed my life. I'm applying for graduate school in literature. I never told you, but our conversations made me believe in writing again. I hope you're happy." I smiled, not because I missed him, but because I had made a difference, even in the mess. I replied simply, "I'm proud of you. I'm happy now." And I meant it. There were still pieces I was putting together. Trust, mostly. but I was no longer the woman who stayed silent. I had found a voice I never knew I lost. People sometimes ask if I'd ever marry again. I don't have an answer. I've learned not to make promises I can't keep, not even to myself. But I do know this. I will never again settle for being someone's option. I will never again stay where I'm not seen. And I will never again mistake attention for love. Because love isn't just words. It's presence. It's consistency. It's honesty. The woman I am now would terrify the woman I used to be. And that's how I know I've healed. A year passed. A full year since I walked out of the life I thought was forever. Since I shed the skin of a woman who lived for someone else. Time didn't just heal me, it redefined me. By now, I had fallen into new rhythms. I would wake up to soft morning light streaming through my apartment windows, the scent of fresh coffee curling around the air, and Momo meowing for breakfast like she owned the place. I had even gotten used to the quiet, the kind that used to terrify me after years of being in a house full of distant silence. This quiet was different. It was peaceful. Mine. Teaching brought me purpose again. I started a creative writing club for my students, and the turnout was surprising. Teenagers who once only cared about phone screens were pouring their emotions into poems, short stories, even letters they never intended to send. Watching them gave me hope. If they could be brave enough to put their truths on paper, then maybe I had done something right with my second chance. Then, something happened that caught me off guard. I was invited to speak at a small women's conference about reclaiming identity after loss. A friend of a friend had read a short essay I wrote for a blog and passed it along to the organizers. At first, I said no. I didn't see myself as anyone worth listening to. But then I thought about how long I had silenced myself, how many women still were. So I said yes. The day of the event, I stood on a modest stage in a room filled with women of all ages. Some wore wedding rings, some clutched notebooks, some had red eyes before I said a single word. I told them my story, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with clarity. I told them how betrayal doesn't always come with shouting. Sometimes it's in the long silences, the forgotten anniversaries, the eyes that no longer look your way. I told them how I once confused being needed with being loved, how I thought holding a marriage together alone made me strong, but that letting go was stronger. And I ended with this: you don't owe anyone your silence, and you don't have to burn to keep someone else warm. The applause was soft but long. Some women cried. Others came up to me later just to hug me. One handed me a note. I still have it taped inside my journal. It says, "You gave me permission to breathe again." That moment reminded me that everything I went through mattered, not because of the pain, but because of the power I found on the other side. Then something unexpected happened a few weeks later. Mark reached out, not through a phone call, not even email. He sent me a letter. I stared at the envelope for an entire afternoon before I opened it. Part of me wanted to throw it away, but curiosity won. Inside was a letter, handwritten in his familiar, precise script. He didn't beg. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't try to win me back. He simply wrote this: "Anna, I don't expect a response. I just wanted to say I see it now. The damage I caused, the way I neglected you. I thought being a good provider was enough. I thought silence meant everything was fine. I know now I was a coward, and you were braver than I ever gave you credit for. I hope you found peace. And I'm sorry for every time I made you feel invisible. Mark." I folded the letter slowly and placed it in a drawer, not because I planned to keep it, but because I no longer needed to carry it. His words weren't redemption. They were confirmation that I hadn't imagined the pain, that I wasn't crazy, that I had every right to walk away. I didn't respond. That part of my life was over. Months later, Clara introduced me to someone. His name was James, a history professor, kind eyes, a soft voice, a quiet laugh. Nothing flashy, nothing like the man I used to chase. He didn't sweep me off my feet. He sat beside me, listened, and stayed, and I wasn't in a rush. I told him from the start, I have scars. I move slowly now. I don't love recklessly. He didn't flinch. One night, as we walked through a park after dinner, I told him something I hadn't said aloud to anyone but my therapist. I don't want to lose myself again. He stopped, looked at me, and said, "Then don't. I'm not here to take you away from yourself. I'm here if you want someone to walk beside you." That's when I knew. Real love doesn't ask you to shrink. It doesn't confuse comfort with obligation. And it doesn't hide behind empty gestures. It meets you where you are and helps you grow. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe James and I will last. Maybe we won't. But for once, I'm not afraid of either outcome. Because I know who I am. I'm the woman who once stayed too long in a marriage built on appearances. I'm the woman who once mistook crumbs for a meal. But I'm also the woman who walked away, who rebuilt, who faced her reflection and didn't look away. And now I write my own story, every day, with no shame and with no apologies.